All right. Well, welcome to the How to Kick the Sugar event. I am going to share my screen really quickly and we will get started. Hmm. All right. Well, as I said, welcome to the How to Kick the Sugar habit. I will be sharing a lot of information today, and you are more than welcome to take notes, but there will be a few handouts that are on the slides. And at the end, I will give you an opportunity to share your email, and that way I can send them to you and you can have them. So if you don't get something, don't worry, you will most likely get it in a handout. All right, so let's get started. Today, you are going to learn how sugar affects the body, why it is so dang hard to stop eating sugar once you've started, how to transform your sugar cravings so you can kick the habit for good. Sounds fun, right? But wait, we got to get to know each other a little bit first. So before we dive into all the fun information, I want to know, what is your favorite sweet and when is your favorite time to have it? And I will start. It's really anything cinnamon for me, but let's go with cinnamon rolls because I think that's the original one. And I would say either largely like Saturday night, I crave cinnamon something, or Christmas morning. But that's just because it's part of my family routine. All right, who's next? All right, so who am I? Not only is my name Laura, but ultimately I have been a personal trainer for over 10 years and a health and nutrition coach for over 6. And in the last year, I really stepped up my health and life coaching and invested a lot in understanding the mental elements around coaching. I have worked with over probably 200 different people. And I am very happy that most of them have been successful in not only understanding their body more, but also being able to lose weight. But who I am when it comes to sugar, you're getting a little bit of a picture here, but I want to show you. So I think it's probably obvious it started from an early age due to the picture on the right. And I loved sugar. I mean, I used to hide sugar, uh, candy corn to be specific, in my granny's office, and I would only go there like 4 times a year, but I always had my secret candy stash. Or my parents had the candy over the stove, and I'd be like a little ninja. I'd jump up on the counter, come over, and like sneak it, and they could see me through the family room if I wasn't quiet enough. So that's why I say I was a ninja. But I loved candy. Past tense, notice. And the picture on the left, you will see that was kind of the centerfold of my bat mitzvah. My bat mitzvah theme was Lauraland, as in Candyland. So sugar has always been a love of mine. What really started having it go down for me was a lot of my injuries. So I've always been very athletic and I've broken 9 bones. And probably not surprising, but anytime that I broke a bone, people would want me to feel better. So they would give me sweets to make me feel better. And when I was younger, I would break about 1 bone a year, and it was largely in sports. So it was kind of like a roller coaster. I'd break a bone, I'd gain all this weight from all the sugar people would give me. I'd start to lose it in my healing, and then I'd break another bone and I'd come back up. And then college happened, and I didn't even understand about drinking in sugars because I only really drank water and Diet Coke at the time. And I gained a good amount of weight in college as well. And I was told after college, you tend to lose weight because you aren't drinking as much, so you're not consuming as much sugar. And that was not what happened for me. And there was a time where I was literally working out 6 hours a day and still not seeing results. As a trainer, it made me very insecure. It made me I asked multiple people in my life, if you ever get the feeling that I don't look like someone would hire a trainer, because obviously people aren't going to hire a trainer who can't take care of themselves, please let me know. So it was a big insecurity of mine. And I decided to change. I decided to get my first nutrition certification. And up until that point, it was kind of like I was boycotting sugar because, or I'm not sugar, I mean, yes, sugar, but nutrition, because I think I secretly knew it was the solution to a lot of these issues, but I didn't want to change my eating habits. And it helps that I had to help other people. I felt like I was doing a disservice to my clients if I didn't get more educated in nutrition. And I learned a lot. And that's when I really started coaching. And I started giving my clients habits. But I made a mistake. I gave them habit action plans, and they were very effective short term. And that's not what I was going for. I wanted long term results. I wanted to change their habits so that they could see the results they wanted. And ultimately, I wasn't taking into account where they were starting from. So I was giving them quick changes that were effective, but not realistic for the duration. And I didn't have enough self appreciation or self love in there, which I didn't understand that until recently. And that is what has helped me develop my go-to stress-free healthy me program. It is different than anything I've done because it takes a whole picture of health. It's the physical element plus the mental element. And I didn't understand the mental element and how that impacts the internal system, aka our digestion, and makes it hard for us to lose weight. So that's who I am. So you are in the right place if you wonder why you crave sugar at certain times. You're done reinventing the wheel and you're ready for someone to tell you what works and what doesn't. You want to discover what is keeping you stuck so you can get unstuck. And you're ready to finally get this sugar food thing handled so you can allow your best self to shine. So I want you to have your best mood, your best body, and your best life. We only have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to teach you as much as I can. And before the time is up, I will show you how to take the next step if that's what is best for you. So there are 3 common challenges that most of my clients talk about and my research supports. The first is, why do we crave it? Where does this even come from? So what makes me different is a lot of nutritionists look at carbs, fat, protein, and calories. But there's a lot more to it. We have to consider mental conditioning, hormonal addiction, and the internal environment of our body. So let's start with our mindset. Monday through Friday, when we're in the work week, we operate under like a certain code. This is, we have to get by bed, we gotta go to bed at a certain time. It's not a weeknight or a weekend, so we can't drink, or we have all these different little codes that we believe. And then the weekend happens, or even worse, we go on vacation and we abandon our codes. We don't work out, we eat whatever we want because we're in vacation. So we vacate the healthy habits that we have. I get it. And I'm not telling you don't do that, but I can't tell you how many people come back from a week of vacation having gained 5-10 pounds, feeling like crap, and having an emotional response to it. I'm trying to help you understand why. So just because you're physically going on vacation does not mean that your health necessarily should go on vacation. That is kind of a line you're going to have to find your own balance with. But the same thing goes for weekends. A lot of people screw up their healthy habits because they view the weekend as a break from their healthy habits. And it makes it hard to get progress going. Second thing we got to consider is comfort food. First off, where did that come from? Food is meant to fuel you. Food is meant to solve one problem: hunger. That's it. But so many people, when they're stressed, grieving, sad, angry, anxiety, you name it, they go to food. Celebrations, people go out for food. So we turn to food for comfort. And that's one of the problems is we're supposed to have other tools in our toolkit to help us comfort ourselves, not just food. Food's effective, and it's not completely your fault because you were conditioned from a very young age to have food as your answer. So how parents cope with pain in the butt children sometimes is they give them food. It's not the parent's fault. That's what also they learned. So it's that conditioned response just kind of trails through the generations. But as an adult, it is your job to understand that if I'm trying to comfort myself with food, that means something needs comforting. And that means if I don't truly address what needs comforting, I'm not really solving my issue. And the last thing we have to take into consideration is autopilot. Because we have these habits built from a very young age, we don't even think, we just do. So let me give you an example. A couple months ago, I was working a really long night. I was feeling really exhausted, and I noticed I was starting to crave something sweet. And I was starting to think, what sweets do I have in my house? And I don't really keep many in my house, but I know my husband does. So I was trying to figure out what he had. And then I paused just long enough to check in with my stomach. And my stomach told me I was full. And I ate like an hour and a half ago. So I knew I wasn't actually hungry. So I was like, what is going on? And I was exhausted. I'd worked like 16 hours at that point, but I really wanted to get this one thing done. I had like 45 minutes left and I couldn't seem to stay focused. And apparently, an old coping tool that I had was when I feel exhausted, if I have sugar, I get a quick energy boost. So I recognized this in the moment, and I have different tools to help energize me. One of them is laughter. So I YouTubed the blooper reel of The Office. I laughed for about 10 minutes, and then I stayed up for the next 45 with no problem. So ultimately, my autopilot, if I would have stuck on it, would have had me eat sweets to counteract my exhaustion. So that's where autopilot can kind of get you in trouble. If you're bored, if you have a habit of eating while watching TV, if you have a habit of eating on road trips like that, you got to be aware of when you're going towards food, the food you're going towards, and why, if you really want to stop craving it to begin with. So that's challenge number one. Challenge number two is the hormonal addiction. So what you're seeing in front of you is the blood sugar roller coaster. And our hormones kind of work like a thermostat. So the baseline is about 70 degrees, let's call it. If it gets too hot in our home, the air conditioning comes on and brings it back down to 70, right? Our hormones work the same way because our body craves something called homeostasis, which is a fancy word that means balance. And when it gets out of balance, it releases other hormones to counteract the lack of balance. And that's what you're seeing with the blood roller coaster. So you eat the simple sugar or the simple carb, you get the spike, that's the hormone coming up. Then it comes back down because it's a short-lived response. The hormone doesn't like that. It goes back up and comes back down, so on and so forth. And that's why it's so hard to stop eating once you get started. Because sugar is actually 10 times more addictive than cocaine. Let's just think about that fact for a second. Think about how addictive cocaine is. We eat sugar daily because all carbs are digested as sugar except fiber. Fiber can't be digested, but we eat sugar almost daily and it's more addictive than cocaine. And you ever notice how around the holidays, because most people tend to eat more sugar around the holidays, you tend to have a hard time after the holidays getting off of the sugar. And that's because the hormones, if you've given it, a month, 2 weeks, however long, they regulate to a higher sugar intake. So that's their new homeostasis. And now it needs more sugar. And that's why you get the craving for more sugar because you conditioned your hormones to crave more. So that's why it's, helpful after the holidays to do like a detox or whatever. And this is just something to be mindful of around weekends where you're celebrating or vacations that you're having a lot of sugar, or anytime that you're really consuming more sugar than you normally would, you're probably going to feel more cravings after because you had that addiction. But just like any addict, you just need some time to bring it down. And that's really what sugar does. Sugar impacts our hormones, and our hormones control us. When you're tired, that's because a hormone was released. When you're stressed, hormone released. When you're loved, hormone released. Everything that we experience is due to a hormonal response. And sugar directly impacts our hormones. So we're affecting what responds to us, and it affects our mood. Like, you literally see crash. We've all eaten sugar. That's why we're here. So after you eat it, you go into the crash and then you don't feel very good. I mean, I don't, so I know you guys don't. Plus, research supports it. And there's a really good documentary on Amazon called The Sugar Documentary. And it's about this Australian gentleman who doesn't eat sugar because his wife doesn't. But then she gets pregnant, and he's concerned about the sugar in the schools and his newborn child, or soon to be born child. So he decides to do an experiment and does this documentary with a bunch of doctors and therapists where he eats the suggested amount or average amount of sugar intake in Australia, which is 40 grams a day. He shows his grocery habits and kind of shows how the grocery sorts things to make us crave sugar more, or more likely to purchase sugar. He even goes to America, which it's a little disgusting when he goes there to see how much sugar is in everything that we eat. But ultimately, the results were pretty interesting. He gained like 20 pounds directly in his belly. He expressed feeling depressed. He had low energy. He had negative thoughts about himself. And his wife described his mood as manic. So it's a really good documentary. I strongly encourage you to watch it if you are interested. But ultimately, that's because his hormones got addicted to the sugar, and he wanted more than even the recommended amount. And that's what happens to us too. So that's the second reason why it happens. And that's the other challenge, is you don't even know why you're craving it. Your hormones are addicted to it, and they're causing that. Challenge number 3 is stress and digestion. So what you'll see here is the magic plate. And this is how our stomach and our digestive system prefers to digest food. It's 1/3 fat, 1/3 protein, 1/6 veggies, and 1/6 dense carbs. And you'll notice on the magic plate that the center, the quality fats, is smaller. And I want to explain why, because a lot of people don't understand this. Hold on. Fat is a denser macronutrient, meaning it takes longer for our body to burn it into energy. So go back with me for a second to elementary school, where you're trying to add or multiply fractions. Remember how you needed a common denominator in order to compare things or to do the math? It's the same thing here. So protein and carbs, they burn the same amount. So it takes about 4 kilojoules to burn protein or carbs. So if you have a nutrition label that says 10 grams of carbs and 10 grams of protein, you can compare that and be like, okay, it's the equal amount of protein and carbs in this food. But if it said 10 grams of fat, because fat is a denser macronutrient, you can't compare it until you make it the same common denominator. It takes fat 9 kilojoules to burn in our body. So easy rule of thumb is multiply the fat by 2. So that's how you get it in the same common denominator to see how much fat is in the food. So if it's 10 grams of fat, 10 grams of carbs, and 10 grams of protein on the nutrition label, mentally you multiply the fat by 2. So it would read, in your mind, it would read 20 grams of fat, 10 grams of carbs, 10 grams of protein. That's how you can compare it and understand this is more fat in this food. And it's important that you understand that. And that is why that section is so small, because if you multiply that section by 2, it's almost 2/3 of the plate, which shows the importance of fat. If you eat like this, the magic plate, you're going to have one happy stomach, because this is what our stomach likes. This helps our stomach slow down digestion, which is imperative. And one of the problems is sweets don't have the 2 key factors that really help impact and slow down our digestion, which is fat and fiber. All sugar really has is carbs. It doesn't even have protein, and protein has nitrogen in it, which helps us slow it down. So it has the only thing that doesn't actually help us. What the other element around it is our nervous system. And what does stress have to do with digestion? So our nervous system has 2 branches, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight response. When that is on, our blood flow goes to our limbs and our mind. When we're in our parasympathetic nervous system, that's called our heal and feel response or our rest and digest response. That is when blood flow is in our digestive system. So, a classic textbook example is if you're being chased by a lion or a bear at lunch. Most people don't encounter a lion or a bear at lunch. And if you, let's say you did, you're a caveman, you ate lunch, and all of a sudden you hear rustling, you see a bear, and you got to run for your life. Your sympathetic nervous system will kick on, taking the blood flow to your limbs and your mind for quick action and quick thinking. And thank God, because that's why we are still here. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be existence anymore. This was an imperative and brilliant mechanism that is no longer helpful because most of us don't encounter a bear or a lion at lunch. Where the problem falls is our physiology, our mind and our body cannot tell the difference between a bear or a lion chasing us and us seeing something negative on the news or social media affecting us or being stressed at work or the kids stressing you or negative self-talk. All of that shifts your blood into the sympathetic nervous system to your limbs and your mind. And when the blood's not in your digestive system, you can't actually digest the food fully. You can't take in the nutrients. So you could eat the healthiest meal in the world, but if your blood flow is in your limbs and your mind and you're in the sympathetic nervous system, you won't absorb nearly as much. And you'll actually get hungry sooner because the calories that you consumed weren't valued in your body. Your body didn't take them in. Only the calories were consumed, not the actual nutrients. So if you find that you are still hungry after meals, that's probably a good sign that let me re-say that. If you find that you're still hungry after meals, first thing, check your magic plate. If you're not eating like the magic plate, then you need to eat like the magic plate because that means you're not putting the right things in your body. If you are eating the magic plate and you're still hungry after meals, that's a good sign that you're in the stress response. If you're gaining weight primarily in your belly, that's another good sign that you're in the stress response. You have to remember, stress, a bear or a lion chasing you, that you can feel that. That's kind of like if you almost get in a car accident, you feel that like stress response. You don't always know when your stress response is on. You know when it's overwhelming, but you don't know when it first starts. And that's the problem. Half the time, our body is in the stress response. We need to understand and learn how to bring it down and relax. And my biggest tip with that is conscious breath work. Literally 2 minutes deep in. It takes about 10 breaths, but it is proven to switch your body into the parasympathetic nervous system, where then your body can actually absorb the nutrients and you won't eat calories that won't have any meaning to you. And that's really challenge number 3. Now, you didn't come here for problems. You came here because you had the problem. So let me give you some solutions. First, check your bevies. Beverages sneak in a lot of sugars that we are not aware of, especially fruit juice. One of the reasons that fruit is so good for us is because there's antioxidants in there and fiber. But when you make it a juice, the antioxidants and the fiber get taken out. So it's literally just sugar juice. So check how many sugars you're consuming in your beverages. And don't just look at the sugar on the nutrition label. Read the ingredients because there are a lot of ingredients that they disguise as sugar. Hydration station. Cheers. Our body is intended to consume 2 gallons of water a day. Now, here's the good news. You get about 1 gallon of that from the food you naturally eat. The bad news is you're supposed to consume about 1 gallon on your own that most people don't. And here's the other good news. We've conditioned our mind to think that we're hungry sometimes, but really our body understands that when we eat food, we get the water that we actually want. So half the time that you're actually craving food, you might be craving water. So my rule of thumb is drink 8 ounces of water. Like if I'm feeling hungry, I'll drink 8 ounces of water. If I'm not, after 15 minutes, if I'm still hungry, then I'm probably still hungry. If I'm not, then I was just thirsty. Next is to satisfy your sweet tooth with sweet fruits, veggies, or herbs. I know that doesn't sound fun, but ultimately, sugar is sugar to our body. We have the conditioned response of wanting the excess of sugar because our hormones are addicted to it. But if you start to transition that to healthier fruits and vegetables and herbs, and it really comes down to learning how to season them, you can actually have a pretty tasty dessert. And if all else fails, find a way to get some fat or some fiber in with your meal to slow down your digestion, which will reduce the spike and reduce the likelihood of your hormones getting addicted. The next is sleep. Yes, sleep. Do you remember my example from earlier about when I felt exhausted? We know that sugar will give us that instant energy. And our mind knows that and our body knows that. So we have a conditioned response when we're sleepy to crave sugar. So having a good night's sleep is important for a lot of reasons, but it will also help you reduce the likelihood of you craving sugar. Next is check your protein. Too little protein in a meal is proven to cause sugar cravings. And really, it's wanting more protein. So for men, the size of a man's hand, so this is my hand, don't use my hand, but when you look at your hand, you're supposed to have one thickness and portion of your hand at each meal, well, 1 to 1.5 for men. For women, it's the size of our palm and the thickness of our palm, and we're supposed to have 1 at each meal. So if you are having sugar cravings and you didn't have a good protein consumption, that's probably why. So if you're having that, so a good hint, because most people crave it after dinner for dessert, double your protein at dinner, so 2 palms, and you will reduce the likelihood of you craving sugar. Next is watch out for low fat and fat free foods. This one bugs me. So back in the day when the fad diet was low fat, the food industry got a little manipulative. So fat is actually a really good nutrient for us. It helps us stay full longer because it takes twice as long for our body to digest it. And it provides a lot of the taste and satisfaction in food. So when you take some of that out, people weren't buying low fat or fat free foods. So what the food industry did was add sugar to the low fat or the fat free foods to make it tasty so people would still buy it. Well, that caused more sugar addicts. And here we are today with all that. So I encourage you, the next time you go to the grocery store, look at a whole fat product of something and a fat free and notice the ingredient difference, and you're going to find some extra sugars in there. Next is move yourself. I did not say exercise. I said move yourself, but I mean movement. And here's why. And this is going to be a little strange coming from a personal trainer. Exercise has a lot of negative connotations to it. It has expectations with it. I have to go this hard. I should be doing this. I did this last week, so I should do this week. That's not fun. And habits require a pleasure element for them to really stick. So if you can let go of exercise and focus on movement, you're more likely to succeed. And consider this. Recess used to be everybody's favorite class. It might still be. And that's because there's no expectations. When have you ever heard a kid be like, okay, I got to make sure I get tagged 3 times to make sure I get my 10,000 steps? No way. That is not how kids think. You need to move yourself in an enjoyable way. And guess what happens when you do it that way? When you actually let go of, I have to do it for an hour. But, I actually enjoy doing 20 minutes of strength training and then going for a long walk. If you enjoy it, you're more likely to do it more often, for longer, more regularly. And it becomes a habit that nurtures you, not punishes you. So think of it as a movement. And lastly, create a new post-meal ritual. Why? Well, dessert doesn't come before meal. Dessert comes after. And that's why. We have the conditioned response. Our hormones almost know it that we want and crave sugar after. So think of it like this. What does dessert do for you? What does it satisfy within you? Yes, it tastes good. I understand that. But what does it do for you? Is it a release? Is it fun? Is it relaxing? Figure out what it does for you. And that way you can kind of navigate how you can replace that habit with one that's more productive. So, for example, I'll use myself. I used to be a sugar fiend when I was a kid, and on the weekends is when I still used to have those cravings until recently. And I had an awesome coaching session where I realized that was me trying to nourish my inner child. So instead, I found a different way. I don't know if anyone can you see this? It's like a little lanyard friendship bracelet thing. I used to do them at camp all the time. Now, on a Saturday night, I will literally pull out one of these and get to work. I haven't craved sugar on the weekend for the month and a half that I've been doing it. And it's been really, really nice. So maybe it's meditation, maybe it's stretching, maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a nice bath, but figure out how you can nourish whatever that dessert is doing for you, and that will help you get out of the sugar habit. So, now I'm going to tell you how to turn today's information into lasting transformation. Who here feels 100% confident they could walk away from this talk and kick the sugar once and for good? Not many, right? And here's why. Humans are habitual. We have the same patterns and the same behaviors. And that's what ends up keeping us in the same pattern, which keeps us stuck in the same position. Information isn't enough. This is useful. You can do all of the solutions, but ultimately, the habits that you have, the conditioned responses that are ingrained in you that you aren't even aware of, are going to try and pull you back. And that force is pretty strong. And that is also called autopilot. So I left out 3 of the key ingredients: the right system, the right support, and the right accountability. The right system is the right steps in the right order, meaning knowing how to gradually bring yourself down, how to gradually improve your health, both physically and mentally, to achieve the results you want. Second is the right support. And that means me being a cheerleader, which I never thought I would say, but letting you recognize when you're right, when you're on the right path, when you're listening to your body in the right way, and really lifting you up, because too many times people like to bring people down. And third is the right accountability. This is the tough love part. This is the part where I'm going to call you when you're trying to justify something, you're trying to lie, because it's not easy to break these conditioned responses because you don't even know they're there. So change is hard. And I'm encouraging you to do it a little bit easier. Stop fighting uphill and actually see the true change that you want to see. I'm inviting you to do something different. I'm inviting you to invest in yourself, to choose yourself, your health, so you can really build the life that you want. If you are ready to say yes to yourself like never before, scan the QR code. It will take you to my calendar and you will get a free coaching session just for participating and watching with us, where I hope you learned a few things. But again, information isn't enough. Let me help you work through some of those mental barriers for free. All you got to do is sign up. What we will do is we will uncover what's stopping you, what you're currently experiencing, what you would like to be experiencing, develop a powerful vision for how healthy you can be, discover which food and lifestyle habits drain you or energize you, get crystal clear on a step-by-step plan of what it would take for you to achieve your goals. And if you want to take it further from there, that will be your choice. So if you are ready and excited to break free, I really encourage you to book your calls. And to give you a little bit of extra motivation, because it's hard to invest in yourself, I want to share a few stories. Well, these aren't the stories. You can read these, but I'm going to share a story about one of my clients. I have a client who she came to me wanting to lose the 30 pounds she gained in her pregnancy, but she said she would not stop eating bread. And she apparently ate a lot of bread. So I worked with her the first month by her rules. Again, telling the expert what they can and can't do isn't always going to get you the right results. So you got to be mindful of that. But she really fought me on it. And she was feeling stronger, but she wasn't losing the weight she wanted to. And so then I asked her, okay, let's try something different. We looked at how much she was currently eating carbs. And I was like, what could be the smallest step that you could take to reduce this? And she said she could give it up for 1 week. And I said, okay, let's start with 1 week. So she started with 1 week. The next week she came back. She said, I'm okay. I think I'm going to do another week. I obviously am not going to fight that. And second week she came back and she said, "You know what, Laura? I never thought I'd say this, but now that I'm standing here 2 weeks out, it's honestly not that bad. Like I don't crave it as much." And that's exactly what happened. Now she's lost 30 pounds. She's kept the 30 pounds off. She's had two more kids. She says that she feels more connected to her husband than she ever has. She said she feels like she's in love with him for the first time in 15 years, and they've been married for over 20, because she's doing the physical work, losing the weight, feeling good about herself, but also the mental work and practicing her self love and her self care, and being able to be someone for her and be on that journey with her has really been quite rewarding and truly an honor. And it would be my honor to be able to help you too and be on your journey with you. But you are the one who has to take action. You are the one who has to be ready for change. So I totally respect if you are not ready. But if you are, sign up for your free session. And even if you aren't, take what's free. I'm not going to push you because that's not who I am. I want to help. It is your choice to say yes. So I want to thank you for showing up and participating. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. And if you want these handouts, please give me your email and I will send them to you. It has been my pleasure. I really, really appreciate it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate reaching out.